ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa joins me now on the line from Port Elizabeth. Zizi, a very good morning to you and thank you for your time. I suppose, firstly, the ANC's response to these calls from prominent leaders of civil society organizations and veteran ANC leaders for the president to step down.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. Firstly, you recall that when we met at the extended National Working Committee meeting in Cape Town on Monday, among other resolution we took was to go out. Besides meeting with the structures of the ANC in a form of branches, we will also meet with the stakeholders, sectors, civil society, including engaging leaders of the African National Congress and former leaders, some of whom will continue to raise issues in public discourse. And there's an expectation, at least from us, that some of them, given their proximity politically, and some of them were still members of the organization, they will come and engage the African National Congress. And of course, we are willing to meet with them, and we welcome at least the indication and the commitment from those even who are part of civil society that they would want to meet with the ANC. The doors of the ANC are open to engage with former leaders, and including those who are non-members of the ANC who would wish to talk to the African National Congress. It's part of the program we adopted last Monday.
All right, Zizi, but given that they have made it very clear, they are firm on where they stand on the president and what it is they want, and they're calling for action from all South Africans, for all South Africans to join them, what will you say to them if they had to come to you and say, okay, we want to sit down and talk?
Precisely that, President, we must meet with them. We must remember, when this call was made, it was made on the basis of as though it arises out of a judgment. And we've got a different view in terms of whether that judgment says the president must be recalled or the president must be removed. And of course, given that now it has been joined, the civil society movement, the other organization, there are still indicators of the African National Congress who have come out despite our expectation that they would have raised these issues organizationally. We still appreciate the fact that they will still come to the ANC. We will still talk to them about their call to understand exactly its implication and engage from the point of view of the organization, given what we resolved as an organization.
Zizi, I mean, you speak about also trying to engage with your branches. We see this Fako Makhato branch that's in the Joburg city centre calling also on the president to step down. Also looking at a meeting last night in Midrand, it seems it's being reported that many other branches are also ready to revolt and want to reclaim the party. Does that not concern you?
The ANC is more than 4,000 branches throughout the country. If I were to comment in each meeting of every branch, it will be until 2019. But at the end, like we said, we're going back to the branches to report about the decisions of the leadership. And if branches have got a feedback to give, it will be at an appropriate time that as the leadership will get a total message from the branches and report back to the national leadership, not to comment about each report from each branch.
But surely it seems to be the start of something. Do you not see the snowballing? And are you not planning to address this as a party, as the ANC, let alone just where you stand behind the president? Because nobody is saying that they don't support the ANC. The issue is only with him.
We have more than 4,000 branches, and we have started a process. And that process at the moment has started with fewer branches, some of whom, of course, have expressed their desire in one way or another in public. But that process is determined, among others, that at the end of that process, we'll then make a reflection as a national leadership. We won't comment about what each branch says in relation to the process.
All right, and you also speak of that if you had to sit down with these parties, Zizi, that you would explain or your interpretation of the law and what the Constitutional Court ruling meant. Now, it seems that there have been some misguided perceptions, there have been some misinterpretations. We saw sections of it called under question from ANC MPs who tried to defend this on Tuesday in Parliament. And the perception out there is that the ANC, that this is you're not putting the country first, that you are putting the president first, you are putting your own interests first rather than that of the party, rather than that of the government and ultimately that of the country.
No, again, that is a very mischievous interpretation that we're putting the ANC first. Of course, as cadres of the African National Congress, when we talk to the cadres of the ANC, we will emphasize, when we are within the ANC structures, to our cadres, we will emphasize the unity of the African National Congress and why it is important. But as a governing party, as a leader of society, will emphasize the fact that country comes first. It's important that South Africa comes first. And if that is raised in the context of the judgment, it is mischievous, and the context of impeachment, because nowhere in the judgment it talks about impeaching the president. And therefore it's important to raise these issues, not to cloud them as though they mean the same thing. The African National Congress will take some lessons from the judgment, which is quite serious. We said we must welcome it. It must be implemented fully without any reservation, whether it's the issues relating to the orders given to the President and the National Assembly, that those issues must be implemented and followed without any reservation. For us, it's quite important. I don't think we would want, at the end of the day, to engage in some political grandstanding about the judgment. But of course, if there are issues of further clarity, those issues, Parliament, through its processes, it must further engage on those issues. But we don't need an interpretation of the judgment. The judgment is quite clear. From the point of view of the ANC, would want to interpret or reinterpret what does it say.
All right, Zizi. I mean, the president himself has come out saying that, he would put the party first before the country, but you have your own version of that. And ultimately, don't you think that you should take into consideration what's coming from veterans, from those who did fight the struggle, who did fight for the ANC? We're talking the likes of Trevor Manuel, Ronnie Kasrils, Ben Turok, also coming out and saying that you should also be cognizant, you should be wary of how opposition parties are uniting in a way that they never have before in this cause.
We must correct a wrong narrative again, that at no stage did the president say the ANC comes before the country. The point I was making, and we will continue to make as all cadres of the ANC, including the president, is that when we talk in the ANC meeting, you are addressing cadres of the ANC. You will reflect on the importance of political discipline, unity of the organization, particularly to those who are deployed in areas in government, that as and when they do that, they must never undermine the policies, the values, the tradition of the ANC. And therefore, in that context, when I'm talking to the cadres, you're not talking to the country. That is the context of the president. I don't think mischievously the president must be misquoted. For us as the ANC, the country comes first. The ANC cadres, in terms of their understanding of the policies and their deployment, they must appreciate the African National Congress in terms of its internal democracy, the democratic centralism, which is the role of leadership, that in whatever they do, they must always remember that they are accountable first and foremost in terms of their deployment to the organization they come from. It applies to all political parties who deploy people in certain positions. They account to the political party they come from.
And Zizi, I mean, just looking at what the branches are saying, just looking at what these veterans are saying, they're not saying that, that they want the ANC gone. They're talking about one man. They're talking about one person. They still believe in the organization. They believe in the ANC, and they want it to go back to what it actually stood for. And they're saying that this is now a crisis. Do you not think that we're in a crisis situation?
That's why we will continue to meet, even as people spoke and launched something called the Civic Society yesterday. We'll continue to engage. Tomorrow we're meeting with the South African Council of Churches. We're meeting with business leadership of South Africa as part of engaging stakeholders as leadership of the ANC, because the strength of the ANC is its ability to listen not just to the dissenting voices, but to the voice that does not agree with the African National Congress. Out of that, the ANC becomes a stronger organization. At the moment, the ANC naturally is now in the eye of the storm, naturally faced by either external and internal factors. And we will come out strong as the African National Congress, but we will not close our eyes to the reality that there are voices, even outside of the ANC, who want to talk to the ANC. We will listen to those voices.
All right, and then there is just a perception, Zizi, that there's just a handful of top ANC members who are standing behind the president. And I mean, we've even seen comments from the likes of Pravin Gordhan over the past couple of days saying that people should guard against greed, that leaders should not break the law. I mean, if you look at what's coming from your top ANC members as well, there seems to be unhappiness there. But the perception out there is that there's just a handful holding the president up.
The detractors of the ANC had written the obituary of the ANC since 1912. And every epoch in history to them, it defines the demise of the African National Congress. For us, the African National Congress, it will always have inter-contradictions because of its nature. They are very healthy for the ANC to survive 104 years. It's not a homogeneous organization. It will always be congested in terms of its direction, including its leadership. And each epoch provides an opportunity for lessons to go forward, not for the ANC's demise. And therefore, whatever someone wishes that President Kodwa and any leader would have said. For example, President Kodwa never said anything against the president. He was stating principles of the African National Congress about issues of good governance, good leadership, stability of institution, which is quite important for the country. But for us as the African National Congress, we regard ourselves as a democratic institution that must allow different voices to be heard for the strength of the African National Congress and that of the country.
All right, Zizi. So I suppose it's all a matter of interpretation, but one has to look at the timing of his comments as well. So what you're saying is that South Africa should forgive, should be giving second chances?
From the African National Congress, from the point of view of the national leadership, is that the president apologized last week Friday, that arising from the court itself acknowledgement that although he probably followed a wrong legal advice, but that illegality may not just allow his conduct, that it was lawfully. And we accept that. But also the court acknowledges that it did not act knowingly, deliberately. And that point is quite important. If there is further engagement to that, it's an issue that we have thought we should go out in society and engage with it. And many people have pronounced, some in support of that, some disagreeing with that. It's the nature of our pluralistic society, and we must accept that at an appropriate time, the ANC will make a determination, having listened to different sectors and stakeholders.
All right, Zizi, you say that you've accepted his apology. Do you think it's good enough that only the ANC accepts his apology? Do you think that South Africans in general accept his apology?
I think only if we listen from one voice in society. There are a number of voices, prominent and credible individuals. Some of them have said perhaps it's a good humility that a leader would have made such an apology. Others, of course, we can't even close our eyes to the fact that there is a huge voice outside as well that continues to say that that apology was not enough. To what an extent that apology was not enough is something that we must engage and listen to. What more exactly the president would have expected to do.
All right, Zizi, it seems you will be engaging with very many groups and engaging on many issues going forward. What about engaging with the president? I mean, there's been a lot of he acted under so-and-so's advice, or the advice wasn't great, it was the wrong legal advice. How will you fix that going forward in terms of who he listens to and how he acts based on what advice he's given? By whom?
At the end of this process, among others, it will empower the African National Congress. This is what I think is inappropriate for the country in the interest of South Africa. This is what is inappropriate. Of course, the president will be part of that process of engaging. And therefore, as to whether we engage the president separately is something which I think it will be subjected to a process as well.
All right, thanks very much. ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa on the line from Port Elizabeth there.